What's up guys, Anders here with another Black Desert video. Today we're going to take a look at Atoraxxion Dungeon, my thoughts on it, and a general overview for this piece of group content we've been asking for forever. Now Atoraxxion will require you to talk to your Black Spirit, go through a pretty simple quest line to unlock a new zone. You're going to need 100G gold bars, so 10 million silver, and you're going to need 49 clear liquid reagents, 49 blackstone powder, 49 powder of flame, 49 fire horns, and 49 trace of despair. You heat all those materials up to get to Libra's tier needed to activate the mechanism in order to teleport you to Atoraxxion itself. Now, a couple of things to note when you first get into the dungeon area. You can use tents here, but not maids. There will be NPCs along the way to sell you potions and allow you to repair if you do not have a tent, so you don't need a tent. And PvP is active here, but there are still karma penalties, so be aware of that. Everything is open world except the last two parts of the dungeon, so that means you will be able to work together with other members of the channel you're in order to solve puzzles and fight monsters, etc. This can also be a bit of a downer too, because when you're trying to do a puzzle and only a couple of people can actually interact with the puzzle, everyone else is kind of staring to see what you're doing. Newcomers may end up messing up the combination by accident or on purpose, who knows. Essentially, what ends up happening is what ended up happening for us is one god tier player who knows how to solve the puzzle will do it, and then everyone else will get the completion as well if they're around. The channel you're in will also affect the power level of monsters around you in the dungeon. For example, if you're going to be on normal channels, you're going to need 250 AP or so to go through the dungeon without too much effort. It's not that bad. For Elvia channels though, you're going to need 280 AP or more, and damage taken is going to be greatly increased. I believe seasons will also have their own Atoraxxion season channel specific. You're going to need around 210 AP for that or less to have an okay time in Atoraxxion for the season server difficulty, so that's not too bad at all. As for the puzzles themselves, they are simple enough that you can figure it out on your own after a bit, but are only needed the first time you run through the dungeon through the main story quest. You can ask others to help you, but most of the time, like I said, if you're in a group of at least 4 or 5, you can complete most puzzles or just have someone else there who's also completing them. Half the puzzles in my run were solved by 1 or 2 people that weren't even in my party, so there's that. The hardest part is really not having those random players accidentally trigger the incorrect order, by walking through by accidentally or messing around. In EU, half the servers were bugged on NPC interaction, meaning that if you did the puzzle correctly at one point, you would not get the completion prompt. It took us about an hour to overcome this one puzzle that should take you about 2 minutes to complete. It's not that hard, and I think the quest was called Recovered Vow, and I'm sure if you've done this, you already know what I'm talking about. Not a good time. That was, I don't know why it was that some servers just did not have that NPC working correctly and others did. It was completely random. After server hopping a few times, we did find a channel that it was not bugged and it was an instant completion for the puzzle. Kind of crazy that we had to even go through that. There's also something else you should be aware of. The monsters in Atoraxxion are there for you to defeat for drops. So they drop these items that allow you to make the necessary keys to enter and progress further and further into the dungeon. The final key requires you to defeat a very large mini boss, kind of like Leighton, that drops a searing heart piece that you combine with Baha's dried fang to make Vaha's burning fang. Now this dried fang is made by using simple alchemy on 10 Vaha's cold thorns to get that one dried fang. You then need to complete an instance puzzle and boss fight to get the final 2 pieces, the Vaha's whispering bell and frozen shell of reason. You combine the burning fang with the frozen shell of reason to get Vaha's twisted fang, and then combine the twisted fang with whispering bell to get Lucretia's dagger. You need that dagger to enter the final zone and fight the final boss. I made a diagram for you guys to kind of shed away some confusion about the whole thing, because trust me, we were pretty lost about it all. It was kind of a mess. Make sure that everyone in your group is farming these materials and has enough materials to make the dagger, because it's very important that everyone has a dagger at the end, otherwise no one's going to be able to go into the final boss room. Everyone needs a dagger. Now, a big piece of advice for you guys as well, do not try and go backwards through the dungeon. There are portals that will take you to the previous zones. For example, if you're in zone C, you can go back to zone B, but you're going to need to craft that zone C key again if you want to go further into the dungeon. It's a good idea to farm at least a second set if you want to do that, if you're waiting on someone and you want to farm some knowledge through hidden knowledge entries. We had an instance where we reached the end, but we could not even face the final boss because one of our group did not get the searing heart piece, so they could not craft the Lucretia dagger to enter into the dungeon. We went back to the start and then we realized, oh wait, we need to make keys again. person to go through the dungeon again. Now, not everyone needs to make the keys. As long as one of you can give them party leader and they can go and open the gates for everyone else. But just keep that in mind. If no one else has materials, you're going to have to do some farming until someone has the ability to make the key and go through the gates again. That was not a lot of fun. I'll tell you that much. You cannot also progress to the final boss fight, like I said, unless all of you have the Lucretia dagger. Now, once you do, the party leader can warp everyone through and you can prepare for the fight. So the final fight is entirely instanced. You're going to be on a separate channel called Marnie 2. This is both good and bad. The bad part is, as an example, what happened to us. So one of our party members got disconnected in the middle of the fight. Now, when he logged in, he couldn't log into Marnie 2 because you can't do that. The final boss channel was Marnie 2, so he had to go back to Balanos 1, which was our normal channel. That meant that he couldn't get back in because he didn't have the dagger anymore. It was already consumed. That means if you make it back, you have to go back to a normal channel and go through the dungeon all over again. When you leave Atoraxxion, all your Atoraxxion materials get deleted. That also means if you disconnect while you're in the final boss fight, you will not be able to join back, and the rest of your party will have to beat the boss with 4 people instead of 5. That's exactly what happened to us. We managed to beat the fight with 4, but it's kind of complete bullshit that there's no way to mitigate something like that happening. Disconnects are not rare in this game, so if that happens to you, you're kind of screwed. Or if you go AFK for a while, you also get kicked out. So you have to go through the dungeon all over again, farming materials to be able to get back to the final boss fight area. So the final fight, 4 people instead of 5. We did it, but it's okay. The way you should really approach this is the beginning. There's going to be the first phase, 2 bosses, too many bosses. You have to split up 2 people tanking the human boss to the left, 2 people tanking the dinosaur to the right, and then the 5th person stays in the middle back, tanking and killing orbs and adds that spawn. The orbs blow up and deal damage, but if you bring adds to the orbs as they blow up, you can give bosses debuffs, allowing the people that are fighting the boss to DPS more. So the idea of the first phase is you don't want to have the bosses near each other, or they'll do a massive AoE spam attack that will most likely kill you if you're not blocking. You don't want the adds near the bosses either, because the adds heal the bosses. And finally, the last thing you need to do in this first phase is make sure you keep the boss's HP around the same levels, because once you push 50% on the boss, it's going to stop being targetable and enter a sort of stasis phase for around 20 seconds. Within those 20 seconds, you need to then bring the other boss to 50% and in stasis mode, or they're both going to heal to full and you have to start all over again. We had 1 striker succession with 1 boss, a Sork and warrior succession on another, and a berserker succession on the mobs and orb duty. Now, once you get the hang of it, it's really not that bad, but the problem is pulling at the beginning is really crucial. Bosses will auto aggro the first person they see, so walking up to your boss is really important. Do not run or dash to them, just hug the wall and walk up to them, and then do a skill to leash them. If an ad decides to aggro on someone with a boss, don't worry about it, just DPS it, and if one of the bosses say is at 75% and the other is 55%, just have the player who is with the 55% boss hold that DPS, block for a bit, do minimal DPS until the other boss is near the same HP, and then you can push them both at once. Now, after you get both bosses in stasis mode, they're going to combine, and then finally the final boss will appear, moving into phase 2. You have to burn down the boss, avoid some yellow AoE, they're kind of like meteors, and avoid floating rocks. These rocks will explode and knock you down if they get close to you, so make sure you avoid those. After some DPS, the boss is going to summon 4 pillars at each corner of the room with 4 different colors. The colors aren't always the same, so forget about memorizing where colors are. Just pay attention to where they are in the room when they spawn. Each orb phase is going to be different. Just call out top room or bottom room, each corner, left, right, to see which colors are where. You can also see them as long as you don't have effects off for faraway effects. Now, soon after you see the pillars, little colored orbs will spawn, and you need to pass through them to catch these orbs and then guide them to the correctly colored pillars. Now, once you have fed the pillar, it's going to turn white. And once all the pillars are white, you can then DPS the boss. The boss will get stunned, and you'll be able to do around 10 to 15 seconds of pure damage, allowing you to go ham on back attacks in this phase. So make sure you take advantage of that. Do Z buff, E buff, whatever you can to maximize your damage output. If you don't bring down the boss to 50%, you'll go through another colored phase, so another colored pillar, pillars, different colors this time. So do the same thing. If you fail, it will give you a little prompt that you failed and you'll have to fight 2 ads. You fight the ads anyway, but they're a little bit stronger if you fail. Just burn down the ads as best as you can. You should be able to still live through it, but it just means you're going to take more damage. But once you kill the ads, you can do the orb phase again and then just repeat until the boss is at least 50% or below. Once it's below 50%, it will move into its final phase where you will get a prompt to think you will bring Lucretia to its knees. Playtime is over. Now, when you see that, you're going to want to move away from the front of the boss or block the attack, because that is a large conal AoE with big damage. Once the boss does that conal AoE attack, you want to bring it to one of the corners of the room. You will soon see another prompt, Urukios, let your stomps engulf the earth in flames. Now, this is when you want to move immediately to another corner of the room, because the boss will unleash a large lava AoE that persists. That boss will now continually drop AoE meters as well and give you that prompt for its lava attack continuously. Whenever you see that prompt, stop what you're doing, move to the other corner of the room, and if you run out of corners of the room, just move to the middle edges. Just make sure to leave some room in the middle for you to move in. After that, it's pretty simple. Just avoid AoE damage, move that boss whenever it does that prompt, and burn that boss down. And that's pretty much it. You've completed the dungeon, you'll get the key of Sunless Dawn, and you'll be able to proceed up the elevator to complete the quest line and receive your rewards. Now, once you complete the fight, you will be able to complete the weekly, and you'll actually be able to run the dungeon again for rewards on a different difficulty. So if you finished it on Elvia difficulty, you can run it again on normal channels, for example, for another set of rewards. You can now also traverse throughout the dungeon to find hidden knowledge, entries that you missed out, farm monsters for Avaha's circuit of special information. This is an item that you need to combine with Ancient Weapon Blueprint, which costs about 1,000,000 silver from the boss NPC to combine into a scroll that's going to grant you some random knowledge of Atoraxxion, helping you complete the entries a little bit faster and give you additional fail stacks as a one-time reward. Now, that's Atoraxxion in a nutshell. If you come back in the following weeks, you will be able to simply farm monsters and go through the gates as usual and fight the final boss. I don't think you need to do the puzzles. It took us about 4 hours to complete the entire dungeon run with all the issues we encountered. The fact that you can lose so much progress from simple disconnects, which happens often in this game, is a big mood killer for a lot of players. Overall, I think it needs a lot of work. I don't see this being very popular. The final fight was actually fine. You got a sense of progression as you learned the tactics, but the path to getting to that final boss was overly complicated for the sake of being complicated. I don't know what else to say, guys. Those are really my pure honest thoughts. If you had asked me mid-dungeon run what I thought, I would have said don't bother. But that's probably just frustration of just having to deal with all these issues. But overall, now that I've finished it, I'd say at least try and finish it because you'll feel better. What do you guys think? Did you manage to complete it all right? Let me know in the comments. And that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys think about today's video in the comments or over on our community Discord. We're now public and accepting new members, so follow that link, react to the comment to get new member role, and say hello. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon to get notified when I upload my next video. Remember, bell is good. As always, guys, thanks again for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.